So hello everyone, welcome to Speak Up Africa, and we're having a partnership with also Youth Cafe as well. And today for our forum, we're going to be discussing safeguarding digital rights in East Africa. And as a partnership that we're having with Youth Cafe, we've called our partnership Jitokezee Tubonge. And on our topic today about digital rights, we'll be discussing basically what impact the digital space has had, especially in the East African countries. So with me, I have amazing guests who are going to help me speak during this forum. I would go ahead to love for them to introduce themselves. I would start by Salome, proceed to Adam, then Peace.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Salome Washuka. I work as a lawyer here at Speak Up Africa. And yeah, it's really great to be here today. And I look forward to the discussion on the digital rights in East Africa. Thank you.
Yes, Adam.
Good morning, everyone. So my name's Good morning. So my name's Adamson, and I work with Tanzania Association of NGOs as the executive director. Nice to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us and participating with us. I would love to now proceed to we save the last for the best. Peace, please.
Hello everyone. My name is Peter Peace Namasaba. I'm a final year law student at Makerere University. I'm excited to.
Thank you. That's lovely, lovely. Okay, so now, as I mentioned before, this is a partnership between Speak Up Africa and Youth Cafe, and we're all trying to basically have these important discussions and have important discussions that are concerning the youth specifically in East Africa and how the laws and our governments work and govern us as well. So specifically Speak Up Africa, we aim to inform, engage, and empower the civil society on civic issues or on civic matters, especially on a digital space. And as I mentioned earlier, today we're going to be discussing particularly the digital rights in East Africa. And on that, as we have clearly seen over the recent past and even now, the digital space has increasingly grown, especially digital rights have also emerged as a very fundamental and a pressing issue when it comes to shaping individuals, companies, spaces, and just the entire digital realm. And this has led to concerns of where we have to have digital rights, where it's basically cyber rights. We have to have the rights to govern these digital spaces. Since it's an emerging issue, it's something that has to have a way of governance and a way of protecting some individuals. So today we're going to be discussing that in how digital rights and the guarantors of individual freedom, privacy, and security in the ever expanding digital landscape. And my first question, I would just like to go ahead and ask, can you provide basically an overview of the current state of digital rights in your country and each respective country so that we can understand what specific legal provisions exist in your country to protect your digital rights? And I would love to start by Peace. Please go ahead and explain this to us.
I think the status quo of digital rights in Uganda is not a good one. Of course, there are many existing laws, but it can be said that the laws are either retrogressive or they are aimed to curtail the digital rights of the individual. So we see that digital rights are mainly about digital privacy and the right to freedom of expression. But the existing laws do the most to curtail those rights. Most recently, we had the amendment to the Misuse of Social Media Act, which was regulating the misuse of social media, the publishing, distributing, or sharing of information. It was prohibited. Also, this act prohibited the sending, sharing of unsolicited information through a computer. So, on the basis of it, we can see that the relationship of digital rights in the country isn't between the individual and digital media. It is more between the state and the individual's relationship to digital media. which kind of skews up the entire narrative. We see that most of the laws in place are put in place to ensure that the citizens cannot critique the government, cannot voice their opinions about what is going on in the current state of affairs, because they risk punishment for that. So we see that the laws, the Misuse of Social Media Act, uh, the Data Protection and Privacy Act of 2019, the Computer Misuse Act of 2011, and the Regulation of Interception of Communications Act are all trying to limit the freedom of expression, which, although it is constitutionally guaranteed, it has limitations. And when it comes to digital rights, these limitations to freedom of expression are being pushed to the most. Journalists, media critics, opposition leaders, they're in a space they're in a space where they cannot critique the government, they cannot share the information that they would like to on social media and other digital media, because they are going to risk punishment. They might be fined or they might be liable to imprisonment. But on the brighter side, we see that the existing laws protects against child pornography, the distribution of children's photos and media. They protect against certain forms of hate crime, though, of course, in implementation, this hate crime is mostly looked at when it is against political leaders, ministers, and MPs. So the relationships between ordinary users of digital media, those relationships are not governed. So we see things like bullying, hate crimes, hate speech, revenge pornography, and a lack of privacy of people's personal data on social media is not vital, because in this past year we have seen members of parliament whose social media accounts have been hacked, because the data laws, the privacy laws, do not protect them from such invasions. But more so in the state of digital rights is that the government has the power to shut down platforms at will. We saw in 2021 during the election cycle, the government shut down all the internet use, and people were not able to access the internet for over 3 days. Up to now, Ugandans are not able to access Facebook without a VPN. But we also see that policies that are in place curtail the use of digital media. There was the act in 2019, which put a tax on social media. It was called OTT, over the top tax. They put a 12% tax on the use of social media. For one to access Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of that, we had to pay taxes. And that situation went on for nearly 2 years until it was seen to be unprofitable, as people were resorting to using VPNs. So if social media is being taxed, we can see that Ugandans have less incentives of using social media. But also, up to now, Facebook is still down, and to use it, to be able to share content with friends, to be able to use the digital marketplace and all these emerging trends, one has to use a VPN in order to access that media. So I can say that the law on digital rights in Uganda is majorly restrictive and retrogressive. Thank you.
Thank you for that piece. I think that was very elaborate. I think you've also gotten a clear picture of how the internet and how the digital platforms basically work in Uganda. And I think as part of your speaking, I got to understand. I was quite curious. I wanted to even ask you, okay, where do we draw the line between freedom of speech and cyberbullying and all this stuff? But you were able to emphasize on it and basically speak on it. So, Adam, I think we would love to hear your thoughts and when it comes to these digital rights and how your country works, basically on the overview of your current state of your country, on the digital rights perspective, and what specific legal provisions exist in your country, in Tanzania, that is.
Thank you very much, Diana. So, so basically in Tanzania, I can say that the issue of digital rights from our perspective, from my perspective actually. On the issue of access, it's not a very big problem. On the issue of the use, it's not a very big problem. But when it comes to creating and publishing content, that's where, you know, it's very sensitive, especially when it's information that is maybe that is not of that is not good for the public. So it's usually strict on that perspective. But as my other colleague said, on the issue of access, for instance, access to some websites with explicit concept contents is not really you can't really access such websites, or which I can say it's good because of the issues of the morals and the likes. But going straight maybe to the issue of the legal framework, currently there are different laws that try to provide for issues of, you know, trying to that are around the digital rights. For instance, the online content regulations, and last year in November there was a law that is called Data Protection Act that was majorly providing for the principles of personal data so as to establish minimum requirements for the collection and processing of data. And this also goes hand in hand with the establishment with the Personal Data Protection Commission, which was to provide for the improvement of the protection of the personal data processed by public and private bodies. And but basically, the challenges that have been noted so far is the issue of institutional independence of the commission, and the issue of consent requirement for the use of personal data, which is to be transferred to other countries. So basically, as I said earlier, on the issues of access, it's actually the digital rights in Tanzania is fairly improved, but yet there's some areas that are strict, especially on political aspects. So I think that's what I can say for now. Thank you.
Okay, so when it comes to your internet, I think whatever you specified is that there's no really limitations with your internet and your digital spaces. But I am curious though of, I think you mentioned something to do with the content that people put up. I think ikifika kwa Tanzania tunaona kidogo, najua there is this body that works inaitwa BASATA. Najua it's you know, it takes critical measures when it comes to what's being posted online. Na recently naona mlivyokuwa na John Magufuli ilikuwa ngumu zaidi kutoa vitu vingine kwa mtandao, lakini naona wamelegeza kamba kidogo tangu kupita kwa Magufuli. Lakini niliona juzi na hii nyimbo mpya ya Billnass na Whozu ameyatimba ilitolewa. So unaweza sema kweli unaweza sema tangu Magufuli yawe na sahihi, unaweza sema kidogo kumekuwa na ulegevu kwa vitu ambao watu wanatoa, ama kama watu hawangelalamika kuhusu hiyo nyimbo, BASATA wangefanya kitu kweli? Na unaona kama BASATA inawaonea saa ingine ama wako sawa? Adam, nakuuliza wewe.
Yeah, so maybe, yes. Yes, actually you are breaking down, but I think I captured something that you're asking. Firstly, I think maybe I can elaborate a bit. BASATA basically in Swahili means Baraza la Sanaa Tanzania, which basically tries to, you know, regulate the content produced by, you know, musicians, artists, basically. So I think them telling them the musicians to put the video down. I don't know whether you have seen the video first, because I think that's where the issue began. That you know, the
I don't even think nilivyokuwa naisikiza sijaiangalia, lakini nilivyokuwa naisikiza mimi mwenyewe nilikuwa nadhani ni kwa sababu ya maneno, vitu ambavyo wanasema. Unajua Watanzania, you guys are creative, yeah? Mnajua kutunga wimbo na kutia matusi. Hata wewe waimba ujui, sawa, watukana, wewe waimba tu. So and then pia sisi wa Kenya kama
Yeah.
hujatoka pwani sana, watu hawaelewi zaidi, watu wanaimba tu. So mi nilidhani ni kwa sababu ya maneno ambayo yalikuwa hapo ndani, ndio kama alikuwa anashtua kidogo hiyo nyimbo yenyewe, lakini naona Magufuli alivyokuwa bado
Because
yuko hai. Mhm.
mm, so I
Naona
was
Magufuli.
actually I took the trouble to look for the video.
Okay.
I took the trouble to look for the video, and basically I understood why they took it down, because there were this uh, there was this message about like sex, and how women can be used as I don't know, it was more of like women were portrayed as objects, sexual objects, because the guy comes with coconut oil, I don't know, and whatever. So I think there was a reason it was justifiable to bring it down.
Okay.
The way the woman was portrayed in the video. So that is my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, now that you've mentioned it, I think I saw a snippet of it. I think there was one where he was having lotion on whatever. Okay, so it makes sense. I don't think in Kenya we get banned for those things. I think in Kenya it's just a bit more free, although the government has criticized some issues and some videos. But yeah, I understand. I think I really needed a clear vision or an idea of what's happening there. But I do think when Magufuli was alive, it was stricter. I feel like after Samia came in, then people were a bit loosey goosey about it. But thank you for that. Sally, your last, I would love for you to give us basically an overview of how Kenya or Kenya's narrative in these digital spaces.
Okay, thank you. So, in my opinion, I believe that Kenya has actually set a good example in East Africa in terms of legal framework and access to the internet. Because there's definitely access, even in remote areas. Nowadays, in areas where you need access the internet, you get it. And also on paper, the legal framework is actually not just good, but it's really really good, because we have some rights that are actually enshrined in the constitution, that can also be applied in the digital space. We have such rights such as the freedom of expression, the freedom of media, the freedom of speech, and we have the right to privacy. And then we also have statutes which actually now come in and supplement these rights in the digital space. So we have statutes such as the Data Protection Act, which talks about the privacy of individuals on the internet. We have the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act, which actually outlines cyber crimes and describes potential punishments to people who are convicted of these cyber crimes, such as fines and jail terms and all that. And we also have the Communications Authority of Kenya, which actually helps in regulating online sources and all that. So on paper, we really really have a good legal framework. However, and I appreciate the fact that we're not limited to political speech, so long as it doesn't lead, so long as it's not incitement of violence or war or hate speech. Kenyans are generally, especially on Twitter, you go to Twitter and you see people speaking their mind about the government. Every time something happens, people are normally vocal about it on social media more than they are on in person, and it's because of the rights that we have, the fact that the government cannot curtail our freedom of expression on media. So I'd say the situation is fairly okay. When it comes to implementation, of course, we have cases whereby people's freedom is directly infringed, and there's not much you can do about it. But generally, the laws in place are actually good, especially for a democratic country like Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Sally. I think just to double down on what you've said, I think Kenyans are quite unruly on social media pages. I think they don't go off any narrative or any book. So I think that is why it's very hard to like govern Kenyans on the social media platform, especially since this is where they hold their leaders accountable on so many things. And I think also we've also seen very good results from them holding their leaders accountable on social media platforms. I don't know about Tanzania and Uganda when it comes to speaking on or the way the country governs or how leaders govern the country. but in Kenya it's a bit different. So I would love to proceed and go ahead and ask the second question, which is basically how do you think in your respective countries, do you think your countries balance the need for national security and with the preservation of digital rights? Peace, please go ahead and give us your idea or your country's narrative on this matter, this question.
Yes, as of in Uganda, the relationship of digital rights is mainly between the state and the citizen. Uh, Many of the laws in place are to protect national security and the sovereignty of the nation. The Data Protection and Privacy Act of 2019 and all of that. But I think the issue falls short because, of course, national security is guaranteed, but the laws and the fall short when you can't separate national security from criticism of public figures. So, for example, you criticize the Speaker of that's considered as dismantling national security. So one of the issues with our existing legislations is that many of the provisions are vague and unclear, and they are open to interpretation. So it depends on the courts and the judge to make sure that they interpret these laws clearly. But as I've said before, uh, the laws guarantee for national security, but in most cases, criticism or trying to find out what is being done with national funds, embezzlement of funds, uh, you know uh, calling out public figures on social media can get one into trouble. You can easily be detained, and with the existing framework of the criminal law system, even if you aren't guilty and you are detained for criticizing a public figure, you are going to spend over 1 year in remand, and even if you were innocent, you will have wasted a lot of time of your time in detainment. So most Ugandans, when using social media and other digital media, they try their best to leave those issues of national security. Even if someone is calling out a public, a few people are going to be like, oh, please don't do that, you might easily get into trouble. The young generation is known for sharing memes. They get clips of these MPs, these ministers, and they share a few light-hearted jokes. And we have seen people being detained by the police because they've made jokes, about parliamentarians, and these jokes aren't a harm to national security, but just because one is offended by the joke, someone is imprisoned. And we can see that the international standard uh, for freedom of expression allows for the critique of public figures. Public figures are meant to have a certain sort of thick skin when it comes to criticism, because they're out there representing the citizens. Everybody's eyes are on them, so they should be able to take all this criticism, as long as it doesn't border onto hate speech or a hate crime. But people have gone to prison for a few months because they shared a few memes and all of that. So the digital space, when it comes to national security and politics, there's that aura of fear um, around it. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there was a prominent social media user, and he was a writer. He's called Rukirabasaija Kakwenza. He criticized the government on social media, and he was detained for over a year in an unknown location. He returned with marks all over his body, damage to his kneecaps, missing fingernails, and all of that. So social media users, when they see those kinds of things, they're in a state of fear where they think that it would also happen to them. But as for national security, the national security is protected for by the laws, and it is highly implemented. But I can say that its implementation highly infringes on the rights of the individual when it comes to their privacy and their freedom of expression. Thank you.
Thank you for that, please. I think that was that was some of the examples you're giving were quite scary. But that also explains why your country is very strict with such issues, or maybe so many people are scared to speak out. In Kenya, it's that it's vice versa. In fact, we speak on it so that we can provoke a reaction out of you. And perhaps if you even take someone to court or even to jail, people will speak on it even more. So I think for us, it works the other way around. I would not necessarily say we aren't scared or people haven't been affected by it. It's just that we rally around each other with the fact that we're speaking for truth and on truth, and we hold our leaders accountable, especially since a lot of Kenyans are known to be on digital spaces. Like Sally mentioned earlier, Kenyans on Twitter, but now they're called Kenyans on X because the Twitter handle it changed after Elon Musk anyway. So yeah, so but in Kenya we are, like I mentioned earlier, unruly on these matters. We don't care if we're speaking on it, and if it affects you, it's affecting us, and we want to speak on it. Even at the moment, where we have this lady speaking or calling out the county government of Mandera over their leadership and their misuse of resources. But I would love to let Salome speak on this further so that she can explain it to us in details and how our country reacts on matters of national security and basically its connection to digital rights.
Okay, thank you. So the laws that definitely protect national security, but in the digital era, I'd refer you back to the Constitution, where we have the freedom of expression, and it's not a limitless right. We that right is the freedom of expression is actually subject to a few particular restrictions. So you can express your opinions, your views, your sentiments wherever it is, however it is you want to, but you're limited when it comes to propaganda for war or incitement for violence and hate speech. If it does not fall within that cluster, then again you're now and it's not cyberbullying. Now the issue is cyberbullying has actually been criminalized in Kenya, but KOX is real. That is what I'll say. Kenyans on X is real because I think Kenya is only, I stand to be corrected, but I think Kenya is the only country where we bullied a former president out of X, formerly known as Twitter, because he actually resigned because people, every time that people had an issue with his administration, people just go to his page and comment all sort of nasty things and bully him, and at some point it got out of control. And even when it comes to um, and implementing the laws on cybersecurity, how do you prosecute over what? Probably like 1 million people. Just because. So at some point, when it comes to cybersecurity, the laws are there. Now implementation is when it becomes a huge challenge, and it's not just the former president, but also other politicians. You find scandals happen, and I think being a politician in Kenya, like Dana said, it requires you to have some sort of a hard skin or thick skin, sorry, because people will constantly want to express their opinions about your particular way of administration, your style of leadership, things that happen under the jurisdiction that you're supposed to serve as a leader. And people will not always congratulate you for milestones that you've achieved, but people will always jump on any opportunity to criticize anybody. So the situation in Kenya is very, very different from what Peace has actually explained in Uganda. And I'd say we the laws are there, and we have the freedom, but we still have some more work to do, in particular when it comes to cyberbullying, because again, not even everybody knows about the digital rights. Not everybody is educated about the digital rights. So now, what happens when I am bullied on social media and I do not know my rights? I just keep quiet and I assume maybe that's the norm, but ideally that is a crime and I can actually go and report somebody. So yes, Kenya, we have substantive legal framework. I think what we need to work on more is implementation. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. And like you said, I think you mentioned something that was so funny. On Kenya, if you're going to prosecute these people for writing, for saying what they feel or expressing their emotions, then I think you'll put over 1 million people in line because people are just they just wake up, they feel tired of the government, they just go on the internet. With the taxation that's happening in Kenya right now, the internet is our safe space. So at least we can release our frustrations there. Anyway, Adam, I would love to hear your opinion and how your country works on this specific question, on this specific matter.
Thank you very much, Diana. And it's interesting to learn from my other colleagues from Uganda and Kenya. So maybe on my perspective for Tanzania,
You're on mute, Adam.
okay. Yeah, you can hear me now. Huh?
Yes.
Yes. So I was saying that, as I said earlier, that Tanzania, I can say there has been a major improvement on the matters of digital rights, but and from my perspective, I think the biggest threat to national security is misinformation, of which it's more of where one maybe uses his digital rights badly to to circulate information that is not true or that can raise a lot of emotions that that is based on false premises. So I think from our side, the government has really tried to control misinformation, but I think it can do better, like trying to balance more than how it is now. So I think that's my take for now. Thank you.
Okay, interesting. I think when it comes to the internet, I don't think on matters of national security, I don't think like I've seen that much in Tanzania, but I do know that when it comes to, I know you guys are very opinionated. Yes, you guys are very opinionated, and I do read some of the comments. I don't know, maybe most people don't notice them because people hardly understand Tanzanian Swahili. It's very unique and very, yeah, it's sanifu sana. But yeah, I haven't like seen issues emerging on national security when it comes to Tanzania. I think on those matters, I would not say you guys are not very active, but I guess something of the sort, not as active as many. But I do know the people who are informed tend to share their opinions on the digital spaces, and that's quite intriguing. I think it's quite intriguing and it's amazing. But yeah, I think we would love to see more of would love to see more of Tanzania on these digital spaces and more of your ideas and what you guys basically think and your thoughts on this. Okay, sawa sawa. So on proceeding, I would also like to know, how does your country address issues related to like online harassment and cyberbullying or cybercrimes, especially in this day and age? I think it's something that we're realizing that is very common. It happens online all the time. So how do your respective countries handle these matters? And for now, I would want to start with Adam. So let's hear about Tanzania.
Okay, thank you very much. So government is really digital, and I'm not praising them because they're the government, but I've seen the way the civil society raise incidences of people who have been harassed, people who have been bullied, and you can see the issues are being worked upon widely. And I was even impressed. I think last month there was also our minister responsible for community development, also tried to provide guidelines like to people who are trying to, to communicate to the authorities of the people who have been bullied, to at least try to protect the identities of the victims, which is a very good move on my side. And most of the times, when issues are raised and it has been seen that a person has been harassed or bullied, they are worked upon very instantly. That is what I've seen personally. And as I said, the civil society has a bigger role that I've seen so far. They're proactive in trying uh, to look for for victims or for incidences that have occurred, and they try to communicate to the responsible authorities. And yeah, so that's what I can say. That basically we are good in that. The government has really tried to address the challenges of online harassment and cyberbullying. So to me, I give them kudos.
Okay, okay. That's interesting. But now, like, I don't know, does it also apply on the levels of harassment? Because, like I said initially, I personally did like an overview of pages that like in Tanzania and social media spaces and pages, and I feel like there's a lot of, I wouldn't necessarily say, I don't want to call it bullying, but people are really opinionated, like they give their opinions. So then how do you how do you like segregate that? How do you separate it? How do you say, okay, this is bullying and this is not bullying? Because I see, like, I read most of the comments. I'm one of those people. Like, I watch a video, then I want to see what people are saying about it. It gives me an idea. It makes me see what someone else was thinking. It makes me see what I didn't see. And I've also seen like a lot of Tanzanians are very opinionated, like, and they're very harsh with their opinions. So now, how do you separate that? Do you now go, like, if you've done it so many times and now that's online harassment, and also it's like a lot of people do it. So how many people are you going to, like? Let me give an example. Mange Kimambi, she's known. She's a blogger. She writes a lot of unsolicited information about people. So how does the government take care of that, or is it because she's not in the country, so it's the rules don't apply to her? Although she is Tanzanian, she has a Tanzanian passport, she has a Tanzanian ID, so we know her for being Tanzanian, but then she's the queen of online harassment. So now, how does the government take care of that?
That's a very good question, and honestly, I don't know what to say now. But I'll try to get back to you on that. Yeah.
Yes, sure. I would love. I know it was completely unexpected, but that's the whole point. You know, you get unexpected questions, and it's like a hot seat. So you get to think about it now. It's something, okay, like, okay, wait. So now, how do they actually handle this? Interesting. But thank you. I will definitely come back to you on it. Okay, peace. We would love to hear from your end how the government, to answer the same question. How does it stop this online harassment from these digital spaces and cyberbullying and cyber this and that?
All right. In Uganda, if you ever bully a public official or a high-ranking public figure, you will definitely be dealt with. That is an actual. But when it comes to relations of ordinary citizens, they aren't really so much governed. There's a lot of vitriol, bullying, and harassment in the space. People say what they want to say when they want to say it, and they don't. That there are no repercussions for them. One thing I can say is that the laws, in their diversity, there are so many laws, against cyberbullying and all of that. But I think that they fail to protect minorities. The Misuse of Social Media Act protects children against sharing their photographs, without the parents' consent and all of that. But still, we have seen that someone is going to take a child's picture, and post it out of context and open them up to a lot of vitriol and hate online. But also, I think the issue in Uganda is when it comes to women in the cyberspace. We see that even like many of the government the legislations are oppressive towards them. I remember we had the 2014 Anti-Pornography Act. Provided that people, pornographic images and videos online were liable to be put in court and a fine and imprisonment. But one thing that law failed to take note of was that many of these images and videos and media are shared online without the consent of the people in them. their leaked nudes, leaked sex tapes, and all of that. I think there was a time last year that literally every week there was a leaked video, a leaked picture, and some of them are celebrities and all of that. But there are no repercussions. Actually, you're going to find that people in the government, ministers, they also the comments laughing about these images that are violating a woman's right to privacy online. So back to the Anti-Pornography Act. The act was victimizing, the victims themselves, in that someone is going to take your photo and share it online without your consent, and they are going to end up in court. But thankfully, the Center for Domestic Violence Prevention and others petitioned that law in the Constitutional Court. There are 4 sections in the Act were overturned. Unfortunately, they weren't overturned because they were discriminatory, but they were overturned because the provisions were vague and uncertain. So when it comes to cyberbullying, public officials, high-ranking people, they can, be rid of it. The perpetrators are going to be dealt with. But in our day-to-day interaction on social media, cyberbullying is very, very, very much a common scenario. I have friends and colleagues who have had to leave media because the bullying was too much. There's so much vitriol, and there's no way to control it. There's no mechanism in place to curtail that. But also, more so, existing as a minority online, we saw this year that the government passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act. So, if you are a Ugandan woman or a minority, a queer minority existing online, it is very likely to be a very unsafe space for you. So, cyberbullying in Uganda is very, very, very rampant. I know some people are going to be like, "Oh, pa, just saying, their opinions and all of that." But there's a difference between an opinion and hate crime, or personally attacking someone on social media. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that piece. I actually wanted to ask you something on the issue you've mentioned about being on digital spaces, and the issue you mentioned of anti-pornography, something to do with the anti-pornography. And I do agree when it comes to Uganda, I don't think the women are protected, especially with these rights. Because I think just recently, if I'm not wrong, there was an issue of revenge porn on a lady called Christine Ampere, and it
Yeah.
was and she was being bullied, and most of the men were glorifying her for very mediocre things. But it was very, very brutal. It was very, very brutal, and the fact that someone even, and the funny thing is, even after I did see the video, because it was also trending in Kenya as well, that this video of her was released in a very unfathomable place, yes. And people were concentrating on so many other things that didn't make sense. They were concentrating on the location, they were concentrating on other things that I don't want to mention, but yes, they were concentrating on unwarranted situations. But they weren't concentrating on the fact that this lady had just been exposed to millions of people, and sensitive information about herself was posted out there, and some were even, people were glorifying her and whatever. But then I couldn't, I tried to picture it and imagine how that week went for her, because it was even trending in Kenya. I don't know about Tanzania, but it was trending in Kenya. And so for someone like her, or when that situation happened, or if there has been such situations happening in the past, how has how has the government dealt with it, and how do the people personally deal with it? Are they like allowed to sue? Are they like, as in, how can someone follow up on that? Can they sue? Can they like, can the government like come now in place? Because you've mentioned that there was an exposure to basically revenge porn, protecting people from like revenge porn. So how does the government, or how do these spaces, or offices that deal with like cybersecurity and stuff to do with like revenge porn, how do they deal with it? Is it something now you personally have to go report to the courts because you're the one who's personally affected by it, or is it something that when the government sees, they're like, okay, this is wrong and we need to take action on it?
Yeah, so revenge porn is actually very common. I think that in that week, that clip that you referred to went viral. Two other clips also, were released in that same very week, and one of the other clips was taken in the same location. It's a popular bar and restaurant in Kampala. And of course, we're asking how come the people are being filmed and all of that in this bar, and why is it this bar, and something needs to be done. But as far as I can tell, up to now, no steps have been taken, to ask the bar. I think a lot of it is victim blaming. People be like, oh, why did you do this in public? Why didn't you safeguard yourself? And as I've said before, the Anti-Pornography Act didn't come from a place of good place, like to protect women and minorities. It came from because the person who was at the helm of it, he was a Catholic priest. So it came in this way of all about safeguarding morality and all of that. So things like revenge porn were catered for in that act. And we can say that even if someone was a victim of revenge porn, they were still liable to to be sued under that act. So basically, the Anti-Pornography Act is majorly not in implementation. It's just a law that is in place. Someone is a victim of revenge pornography, or their nudes are released, and then the steps they take are personal. Maybe take a social media detox, or completely leave the platform, or things like that. And as I said, in that situation that you refer to, we had government officials also come out and publicly bully this young girl who was a victim. So yeah, there are no protections in place. As far as I can tell, the government hasn't done nothing. Yeah, we see government officials are sharing these clips, they're retweeting, they're liking, they are commenting derogatory comments under this. So the space is very, very, very much open. Yeah.
Okay. And I find that very comical. The fact that even government officials are sharing it and liking it. I think that in Kenya they would have definitely caught fire. Maybe they share it in like their private spaces. But I think we would like to hear from you, Salome, on this same perspective when it comes to Kenya.
Can you
Basically, how does
confirm
the
whether
government basically how does the government like um, address issues when it comes to cyberbullying, online harassment?
Okay, thank you. So I hope you can hear me. I back because of my network. Yeah, in case you lose me, just so when it comes to cyberbullying and cyber harassment, the government, like I said earlier, on paper we have good laws. So we still have. I'll refer back to the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime, Act of 2018, criminalizes cyberbullying and sets up a penalty for anybody convicted of this crime, which is a maximum of 10 years imprisonment or a fine of up to 20 million Kenya shillings. Because in my opinion, it is strict, but it is necessary because when it harassment and cyberbullying, this is not just something that individual, but also affects the people surrounding, the people close to that particular individual. I'll give you an example of Aziad Nasenya, a content creator who's actually risen the ranks over the years. But you see, when she became famous on social media simply because she posted a video and that went viral. So when she was speaking on interviews and explaining the situation, that people would actually she'd get over 1,000 messages and calls from men from all over Kenya trying to get in touch with her. People just calling her just to throw insults at her for no particular reason. And the way she described the situation was actually horrifying. I personally wouldn't wish that on anybody, even my enemies. But again, when it comes to implementation, I'll go back to the example of ASEAN. Recently, some TikToker by the name of Brand Shira actually tried to bully her again on his TikTok live, and this time around she took action. She relied on this Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act of 2018 and reported him. And he was charged. He was arrested and charged with cyberbullying. So I'd say, given that example, I'd say it might be hard to implement this rule when it comes to millions of people. Like when I mentioned that people come at politicians or people come at social public figures in Kenya, it's a bit difficult to prosecute each and every individual. But when it happens on an individual basis, or when it happens, for instance, like let's assume that Christine Nampera was from Kenya, then I think the person who actually leaked that should have been arrested and charged. And I think that will have been a good case to actually even set an example. So I'll also refer to the issue of ignorance. Yeah, most people are not aware of their digital rights. It's very nice that we're actually talking about this, so anybody what the digital rights are can actually refer back to this forum and get to understand that they're actually protected. So that's it. I'd say the government has taken sufficient steps, and now what we might have to work on is advocacy campaigns on raising awareness now on on the fact that cyberbullying is actually a crime. Not many people know that. And yeah, I think once people understand and know, then we will have a more healthy environment on social media. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. I think, thank you for that, Sally. I think, especially in Kenya, in as much as we have digital spaces where people are very outspoken about the issues of the government and issues affecting them in general, I think there's definitely, most times we assume that, okay, I'm talking about my rights and I'm talking about the things that concern me and the things that I want to raise. But then sometimes even our leaders, especially in Kenya, we bully our leaders a lot. Like Sally said, we even bullied our former president out of Twitter, or now known as X. So I think there is need for like supervision when it comes to how we use the internet and how it affects others. So I think we're about to wind up on speaking on these few topics that we have today. But before we wrap up this set, I would like to just ask a final question, which is, what do you see is the most critical steps to advance and strengthen digital rights in your respective countries and in the coming years? We would love to start with you, Adam. Adam, did you get the question?
Yes, I got the question.
Okay.
So maybe I can also give our perception as Tango as what we think maybe we should do, maybe for the future. So basically, we are focused to do like four main things in advancing digital rights in Tanzania, specifically the NGO sector in Tanzania. So, firstly, is to familiarize the context to the people within the sector, like to understand like how the environment operates and how it goes about. But also, secondly, on how they can protect themselves, the information, what they are doing, and because recently we've experienced a lot of people complaining, hackings, and like the likes. I'm not saying that we want to make them computer experts, but it's more of protecting themselves and making sure that the information they leave or that they post in the internet is not going to be used against them, in the near future, in a negative way. But also, we are also, aiming to ensure that accessibility to digital rights, maybe through capacity buildings, understanding different platforms, understanding on how to but to bring impact, and not only impact but also sustainability to the initiatives that they are trying to do in advocacy, reaching out to the people, informing the public, the likes, and maybe lastly, but not importantly, is just to try to engage with the government more, to improve the legal frameworks better. Maybe if there are areas that are not very conducive, then we can try to engage with them to see on how we can improve further. But because for us, we don't believe in confrontation, but we believe in engagement, because sometimes the government, you may confront them, but they may not even have the answers of the issues that you're trying to push for. So sometimes sitting with them in the table can also, help your agenda reach well, and your recommendations taken on board. So I think
You're muted, Adam. Adam, you're on mute. Adam, you're on mute. You're on mute. I don't know if you can hear. Adam, you're on mute. Adam, you are on mute. Can you hear me? I don't know. I think Adam is struggling with his internet. You can hear me, but we can't hear you. You're on mute. Okay. Sawa. I think next I would love to hear, Peace. What are your parting words and parting shot on this entire topic and the question I just asked?
I think when rights in Uganda, the bulk of that duty should now be with the citizens. I think there is a need for who use social media to come together and enforce a code of conduct among themselves, like, hold each other accountable, in cases maybe when someone's nudes are leaked or there is a tip going, viral, to hold each other accountable and, say that, we won't do that, or, to report accounts that perpetrate such media or what, because, their users who are well known for that being their niche content. So I think it's a big part. It's good role for social media users to hold each other accountable. But I also think that Ugandans need to come together with civil society advocacy groups uh, to hold the government accountable when it comes to this progressive legislation, or to the detainment of people who have just dared to express themselves freely on digital spaces. I think it's really vital for citizens to liaise with advocacy groups to hold the government accountable. To the government, I can say that there is a need to address emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, robotics, and all of that. We have seen that artificial intelligence is now being used to create, like, say, fake images and fake videos of people. These images are being circulated online. So I think it would be very vital for the government to come up with mechanisms and means of addressing such challenges, because at the moment we are very, very far behind when it comes to things like knowing what image is generated by artificial intelligence, or which is genuine. So I think that's very important. But for me, when it comes to digital rights, it falls mainly to the users to, to report these accounts, block these accounts, delete them, create awareness accounts that are perpetrating, hate crime, or that's against cyberbullying. It's going to fall a lot on the users. But I think that the existing environment online is also a demonstration of its users, their attitude towards these subjects, what they think on these issues. and all of that. And the law can only do as much. It has to be backed by the will of the people. So going forward, I think this is a call of action to everyone who uses social media, who uses X or Instagram or TikTok. To be more kind to each other, to refrain from hate speech, crime, stereotyping, the cyberbullying, the spread of malicious images and all of that. We are the users of social media, and that burden falls a lot on us. We have seen people who have been, bullying others, and tomorrow they end up being the victims, and then they are actually so we're the ones who perpetrate these systems of injustice and inequality. So although the government has its role, do that, we also need to take it upon ourselves to create an environment whereby everyone is safe to use online, where everybody can, at least have privacy online, can try to express themselves freely, without there being repercussions. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Peace, for that. I think everything that you've mentioned is actually quite important. And I do believe if we do enforce some of the things that you have mentioned, I think this would be good. And lastly, I would love to hear from Salome on her parting shot and what she thinks of this last question.
Okay, thank you. So I think I agree with this first of all, that the law can only do as much, and it has to be backed up by the will of the people. So I agree that there also has to be some sort of advocacy when it comes to digital rights, particularly in community guidelines. Like I feel like civil society organizations and NGOs can also, and the government as well, can also come together and do projects to raise awareness, to actually and also push the government to put pressure on the social media, the owners of these social media platforms, to actually be more strict with their community guidelines, so that we can reduce instances of people being bullied on digital platforms. And yeah, so the law can only do as much, but now for Kenya, we already have sufficient legal provisions. I don't think there's much that can be done, but when it comes to enforcing these legal provisions, then I think the government also has to step up a bit, and CSOs and NGOs can also put more pressure on them, to put more pressure on the government to actually now, enforce this particular rights that have been enshrined in legislation. So I think that is it from me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Sally. I want to thank everyone, Adam, Sally, and Peace, for joining me in discussing these issues. At least now we know Kenya is a bit out there and wild when it comes to these matters, but we have gotten your perspective. I think from Adam's perspective, things should be handled a bit calmly and politely as the Tanzanians move themselves. I think in Kenya we make fun of Tanzanians so much. We even say when they go to the shops, they have to say, please, can I buy something, instead of just buying it because the money is theirs. I think as for Uganda, I think you people have the right ideas, the right mindset. I just think the government is a scary place. Your government seems very tough. It seems very tough. Someone coming back with no kneecaps and no nails. That just sounds dangerous. And as for Kenyans, ACC, we're willing to die for the struggle. So I want to appreciate you guys for taking your time to be here and for sharing with us your insights and ideas. I think it was very educative and it had amazing information to learn from. And I just want to thank you for availing yourselves and sharing with us what you have and how your country, or what your country stands on when it comes to digital rights. I would have loved to maybe have a cup of tea after, but since we're all in different countries, I think we should stay in touch. And yeah, please give us more information about your standing on these issues, on digital rights and matters, if you don't mind. But I would love to wish you guys a lovely day and an amazing weekend. That's okay? Okay, guys. Bye. I think our